The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this episode are that of the guest and host and do not necessarily reflect the values of sponsors or other associated organizations. Welcome to the Parental Compass presented by Family Education and Support Services. I am your host, Bobby Williams. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe to us on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, whatever Google has, whatever the platform, there's a way to subscribe. So be sure to subscribe to the show. Announcement time. Family Education and Support Services is hosting a virtual conference. So if you like the ideas that you hear on the show and you want to do a deep dive, I encourage you to check out our conference we have coming up. You can go to strengtheningfamiliesconference.org and learn more about the Strengthening Families Conference. We all want our children to feel safe. Well, today we are talking about practices that you can do at home and even within your own self to build a stronger sense of safety. Our guest today is Mike Pereira. Mike is a clinical social worker. What I appreciated about the interview is he's coming at it from a lot of different lenses, and it seems like this would be some out-of-the-box ideas, but it actually just makes total sense. Let's check it out. Like, I've heard of people storing trauma in their body, but what does that actually mean? Does that mean like my right arm is really tense, or what does it mean to store trauma in your body?
Yeah, it's funny you said that. I've worked with people that have a lot of they don't know where it came from. There's a lot of tension in the right arm.
Oh, I was
They'll
just
be
throwing
sitting
something
there,
out there. Yeah.
right? And they'll be sitting there, and they will look at their arm, and they realize they've been clenching for how long they don't know, maybe a half hour or so. Sometimes people will wake up with the clench, and when they see it and they relax it, oof, it's like they've been doing it for a while. It's exhausting. So, the story of tension in the bodies. I mean, this is way back when all the way to lizards, and even beyond. An organism learns how to respond to its environment, and so we have our body with our spinal cord and all these wonderful nerve endings and appendages and vital organs. This thing is a very conscious thing. It has its awareness with the environment, and so it will learn. If we pick up this rock, that we might get bitten by a snake. It doesn't need the thinking brain to discern threat in its environment.
Yeah, I remember once just something really awful happened in my life. And the next day I woke up and it was like every muscle was stiff, or I just bended my knees and was like, oh, But so we have our conscious self, and then our unconscious self is kind of interacting with the body.
One last note on the body storing the tension. Something that I like is, you ever watch like the nature channel, and you'll see like the lion comes into the herd of gazelles and maybe grabs a gazelle or barely misses. The gazelles that were closer, the animals that were closer to the threat, what you'll see them afterwards is they'll shake it off. They'll kind of do this, like they might kind of like try to start like a mock fight, or they might try to like they'll kick to the left or whatnot. But there's a lot of stored tension. So like what you explained about waking up the next day kind of tense, that's a very, very, very natural place to be.
How can we take this back to the idea of parenting and helping kids feel safe, or what in general can you do to make it so kids don't feel like they need to be tense all the time? Or what are just some general tips you could give?
The greatest gift that we can give to our children in safety is to ensure that we ourselves are safe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so as we are safe, we will exude a safe demeanor.
Cutting in real quick, what does it look like to you yourself be safe? Because it's like we all know we're probably not going to get shot or something. So when you say safety for ourselves, what do you mean?
There's a lot going on between our thinking self and the body. Okay. There's a lot of stuff in between here. And so we need some mirrors. One of the mirrors that we can use is a very simple tool. Everybody has it available to them. You don't need to buy, purchase. It's mindfulness. And this is very important. So if you were to take, and as a parent, if you were to take a minute, and I would encourage folks watching to go ahead and pause this for 1 minute. And as you went through this minute, that you're probably going to notice that a second that there was stillness, that you're going to have some anticipation. Your brain is going to kind of come into the stillness with some thoughts, maybe something that has to be done, maybe something, like what I had said. Could be something that the image in the background. You might feel something in your body. Regardless, there's going to be some sort of interference to that stillness, and that's natural. What we get a lot of times through the mindfulness is you'll start to feel a level of anxiety come up. They'll start to feel where you have to distract yourself. You have to pull your phone out, check the time. You got to think about a list to be able to knock out things that have to be done. Mindfulness is a wonderful mirror that if you could sit in silence for 60 seconds and feel no anxiety without having the thoughts be intrusive, be able to welcome the thoughts and let them go, I'd say that you're doing really well, especially in today's culture. If you find yourself becoming facing like some anticipation or anxiety, what we have to keep in mind is that that's going to be shown in all of our actions. When we're sitting there by ourselves waiting for something, maybe somebody go into the store and come back out, we're waiting at an appointment, we're waiting for X, Y, or Z, and we find ourselves easily trying to distract ourselves. That's a cue to us. That's a mirror. It's telling us we don't really feel safe. Mind is trying to occupy itself, is trying to distract itself from the body not feeling safe.
I mean, that's a great point. Or we don't always like sit back and be like, what am I really thinking? Or what am I really feeling? So say, okay, you do that, you're mindful of yourself. What about other things to help your children feel safe? What about when your kid's stressed out? Are there just some simple tips of this will help your child feel more secure?
Yeah, so there's a fancy word. I really like it. It's called neuroception.
Okay.
It's very simple, but it's something that we're not very mindful of. When you and I are having a conversation, we're assuming that the thinking self that's Mike is talking to the thinking self that's Bobby. Right. And that's true. We are having that conversation. But even more so, the entire system that is Mike, that whole ocean underneath the raft, is also having a conversation with Bob. And likewise. And we could best see this with horses. If anybody has experience with horses, or if anybody has access to horses, if you walk out to a horse's entire demeanor, if you look at a horse in the field, you might get kind of bored. It's like watching golf. They're just kind of sitting there, right? But if you zoom in, you can see their ears are constantly doing this, right? And sometimes they'll do this, and their tails will do this, right? And as you're watching that, you start to become aware of a very complex language. As prey animals, they are trained to communicate other than verbal. They don't want to communicate loudly. They don't want to give away their position. And so they have these little minute things that they do, and they're very chatty little beings. They chat. And so they're always picking up on these nonverbal cues of those around them. So one of the programs I ran was with veterans and inner city youth, all of which were diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. Would bring them out to the ranch. We'd sit down in front of a horse, and you can tell a horse, horse, I need you to walk over there, right? But if your body language is loud, right, and you don't know why you're there, and this thing is big and it's looking at you and you don't know what it's going to do, the horse is not going to listen to the words. It's going to see your body. And it's going to say, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't belong here. I don't belong here. None of us belong here. And you're going to start seeing the horse is going to start moving around. Okay. And so you can actually see this in demonstration, where if you're in front of a horse and you're just sort of doing this, the horse will do this.
If
Okay.
you're swaying back and forth.
Right. The horse is going to match your energy. Okay. And I think that that's a very, very important insight with our children. In the very much a similar way, children will adapt to our energy. And so if the child's central nervous system, their body is escalated, right? That already is going to be a stress point for us. It doesn't matter if it's our children or not. Sometimes it makes it worse that it's our children. They kind of look like us. They're hitting on a lot of things that are well integrated with us. So if we see them escalated, we're probably going to feel escalated, right?
Yeah.
Right. So this is where it comes very important back to point one, which is the mindfulness. The more mindful you are, the more you're able to make that discernment in the moment when your child is escalated. You know what it's like to feel calm. That is the gift that you will give your children.
Yeah.
Is that as they are processing their stress and they are feeling themselves in flux, it doesn't matter what you say, okay? Or it does, but only as an extent of like the raft on top of the ocean. What matters is the ocean. What matters is the body. And if you can maintain your calm point. So in my family, we call it your calm. Right. And sometimes we have to go find our calm.
Yeah.
And so as far as simplicity goes, mindfulness for yourself. Then when you're working with your children, whether it's in a group activity, whether it's because they came home stressed out, whether something's going on online, they're going to pick up 99% of what they will do, whatever they're going to work with, they're going to pick it up by your demeanor.
It seems like so much of the people that we are is established when we're young too. So I get what you're saying of, okay, let's be mindful of ourselves. Let's not stress out around our kids. If they're stressing us out, let's take a moment, get some deep breaths, relax around them. Yes. Beyond that though, say a kid is coming back, they're nervous about the first day of school, or a grandparent died or something. Are there other things you can do to comfort your kids or make them feel a little more at peace beyond just being at peace yourself?
So empathy is a great practice. I attempt to assume there's 3 steps. Ready? And I get this from literature. The first one is attempt to identify what the other is feeling. Attempt to be able to identify why they're feeling. 3, talk to them about what your insights are. Opening it up as a collaboration, as an inquiry. Let them get that energy out. And as they do, a lot of times people and children both just need to know they're not alone. Safety. Right? They don't need solutions. They don't need,
I think that's the thing is it's like, okay, you're talking about wanting to fix, and it's like sometimes there's not fixing things, but just processing and letting something just go through your mind a little bit.
Yeah, what you're doing, again, it's all undertones. Think ocean to raft, right? You're showing your care. You do care. You're letting that part be present. So one of the things that's really important with this too is context and environment. And what that means is that we want to be able to create a safe environment in the house. So they have a safe spot to go to. They should have some sanctity in the house, some sanctity in their life. Moving more into the child, into the body. You want to make sure things like sleep are important in the family. You want to make sure that nutrition is important in the family. You want to make sure that exercise and even mindfulness. We do quiet time in our house. That these are all essential ingredients. So when the time comes and the stress does come, you don't have to tackle the whole stress all by yourself as a parent. You've already built some great fertile soil for productive processing of stress inside the child. And that's why you don't need to say too much. You just need to be present.
You kind of have this foundation so that when something happens, it's like they're coming back to a peaceful home. They've thought, they've practiced mindfulness and trying to think about what they're going through. Yeah, that makes total sense to me. Share your water tip for calming your heart rate, because that's a pretty cool one.
There are a number of hacks that you can find. You can just Google. Of course, I mean, as far as, things like medical conditions and whatnot, that's an important caveat to any of these to be able to talk to your doctor about any condition before you do any of these little life hacks. But there's a number of life hacks that are available for stress. I'll say a couple, but this is just a drop in the bucket. My favorite go-to is actually crackers. Okay, I'll get to the water in a hot second. So when I was working with traumatized youth, I would keep crackers on me. And what the crackers do is as you're chewing on the crackers, it's telling your body. Now remember, ocean, right? 100% ocean. It's telling your body that it's time to eat. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, to eat, that forces your what's called the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight, your flight, your freeze. That sort of response to the environment is sort of either a defensive or offensive response. It forces that sympathetic nervous system down, and it increases the parasympathetic nervous system, which is it's time to relax, it's time to eat. And that sends much different chemicals to the body. And so I would work with them as if they had a stress point, eat a little cracker as they're doing their processing. That will turn their brain from fight, flight, or freeze to sit down and rest. Okay. The one I talked to you about was with the water. Yes, you can run your wrists. You see in the movies, people go to the bathroom, they splash water on their face. There's some legitimacy behind this. Cold water on the face, and if you run the cold water over your wrists, it will convince your body that you might be drowning, and you're going to have to conserve your oxygen. Your oxygen is going to have to be really just to the vital organs, right?
That seems bad.
Well, what it does
is good.
Well, because what it does is it'll lessen oxygen to your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll get, if anybody's ever taken a drag off of a cigarette, it'll kill oxygen to the brain for a second. That's when you get that little nicotine high. They call it a nicotine high. You sort of just get like a little bit, it just dumbs the brain down enough to be not so overactive when you're feeling stressed. An important part with the brain, you got to realize that the thinking self can think of a lion. And the brainstem down here doesn't know that it's not really a lion. So when we have financial difficulties, when we have anticipations over health or someone else's health, when we have whatever worry or anxiety we can latch onto, our body doesn't know it's not real. It is living in the reality that the thinking self has given us. And so a lot of these tricks are going to be to dumb down the brain, to stop the chatter up in the brain. Number one goal of mindfulness.
We're not hunting animals really, unless it's for fun. We're not getting attacked by lions, but our body still has those feelings and we gotta keep trying to counteract them. This has been just such a fascinating conversation. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. And I just really appreciate all the great work that you do.
Bobby, very reciprocal. Absolutely. I love the impact you have in the community. And I do appreciate letting me come on. And I look at this as a challenge. Most of the clients that I work with, the families that I work with, and just in the general public, it is hard to sit in silence and stillness for a minute. And I hope that serves as currency for folks just to contemplate, to think about and the best part with stillness is the best part to get good at stillness and all the benefits that it comes with all the interactions we have with other people, including our children, is just more stillness. I would encourage people to carve out just a little bit of stillness so that the raft on top of the ocean takes a break and we get a little more acclimated to the ocean that we're giving the world.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you, Bobby.
Getting that peace within ourselves, that's the lifelong journey. Thank you again, Mike, for joining. This has been the Parental Compass by Family Education and Support Services. Be sure to check out our conference, strengtheningfamiliesconference.org. I'm Bobby Williams. We'll see you next week. Peace.